I don't believe in saying that the biggest successes are, large scopes or large budgets. It's every activity you do should hopefully bring you closer to not just understanding your audience, but just understanding how people generally are responding to, in this case, film.
To maybe talk about maybe one of your most successful cases around your marketing strategies with audience, or something maybe that nobody has heard before that would be quite interesting around one of the projects you worked on. Ibti?
That's a really good question. Definitely put us on the spot.
Or something you like, something you've enjoyed working on.
Well, I think to your earlier point, what constitutes as a successful marketing campaign? I think at the end of the day, it's what's the message you're trying to get across and who are you trying to speak to? That, in some cases, can be a really broad and wide audience. And in some cases, it's really focused on a much more smaller audience. And as a part of that, again, what's the objective? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to get to know them? Are you trying to foster a long-term relationship? Or are you trying to just broadcast a message? There's really not one way to do it. And there's no blanket, black or white. This is the best way to do marketing, because essentially the best marketing is relatively human. And I think for us, that's why, I can speak to a campaign that's actually really small, and I can call out why that was really successful because of what we took away from that. It can be, just as an example, in relation to MUBI, for instance, we have a really brilliant French team who we were having this Almodovar season on the platform, for instance, that we were very excited about. Again, and that's like presenting, it's a content marketing campaign, essentially, right? So you're not presenting something wildly new, but it is reintroducing to some, allowing some to discover Almodovar. And this really clever team thought of, for instance, partnering with a florist and sending out a very specific bouquet of flowers and creating these very simple kits. And on the outside of it, you look at that, you're like, oh, that's a very basic and quite simple influencer marketing tactic. But really what it did, it was, on the one hand, it surprises and delights people that get these insanely beautiful bouquets. But there was really just so much detail and thought put into how this was a part of the films that were in this film group. And the list of people receiving this wasn't huge. It can be a list of 25, 30 people, but their reactions to what they received and their ability to then dive into this Almodovar season that we were having and talk about it really loudly, the amplification of that was huge. And then also having, this florist company was also really blowing up, and it was just the best part of that campaign, which on a scale, again, could be considered relatively small. The learnings that we came away from that were huge. And to be able to take that and apply that to something bigger is actually exactly what you need, and which why I don't believe in saying that the biggest successes are, large scopes or large budgets. It's every activity you do should hopefully bring you closer to not just understanding your audience, but just understanding how people generally are responding to, in this case, film or the internet. So that for me was incredibly exciting, because getting to see people fall in love with something maybe they're already familiar with or rediscover it, that's super powerful. And we don't own the conversations around film. We don't create these communities. We're members of them. We're a part of them. We're facilitators of the tools or what they bring into the conversation. And I think that's the most important thing from a marketing point of view. The minute you think that you are shaping this community, you are driving it, even if you're curating, that's not true. These communities will exist whether you're there or not, because it's driven by people. It's people's interests, it's people's expressions. They're really the ones driving it forward. And for us, for instance, why dialogue is so important on the platform, reviews, etc., is because we're showcasing what the community is doing. It isn't MUBI that's gone and reviewed every single title on the platform. We're presenting the films, and then people are coming in and they're just talking about how they feel about the film, and that's really important.
Somehow I wanted to add something on the side of film history, because a lot of people come to me and there was a social media trend, and now there's NFTs and there's metaverse and all. And we built this industry for at least 100 years, right? And I wasn't part of this building before '89. And I really started in the very traditional way of doing things. I was a publicist working for A-class festivals. And I had this incredible mentor, Richard Lormand, who used to be a celebrity star himself, a wonderful person. And he taught me how to see the industry through film history processes. So he said, listen, everything that you see here comes from somewhere, comes from a collective decision that everything we do today is not because we just thought of this yesterday. There was someone else and someone else and someone else that thought of this 20, 50, 100 years ago. And as a collective, we made decisions that this works. So that makes it our industry today. So it's like a collective of thoughts, And then when I see NFTs, I see how it connects to crowdfunding, and I see what crowdfunding wanted to be and didn't become, and how NFTs platforms are following this, and how first time I can see the Kickstarter reward translated to NFTs or metaverse becomes this token, and token can be everything. And then, but to somehow add to what you're saying, I find many people saying, "Oh, I just invented this. I just invented this, and this works," while in fact, just studying and researching what happens before and trying to translate it. There's so many solutions out there that we don't even get to use that worked before and were there in the 20s, and somehow I feel like a lot of my work comes down to understanding how it was at the beginning of the cinema, what kind of processes they were using, and then being surprised how much they're alive today and how much you can actually start seeing them around. Okay, in a modified version because we're not living in the 20s, but somehow to understand how this puzzle we have today, how is it built and what is it made from? Also sometimes comes down to a very simple understanding, like what was there before and how really smart people were trying to build it despite different obstacles that they had. And obviously there were different times, so somehow something was unavailable back then. And now it's available now because we live in a different time,
I think that's really interesting. I mean, I pick up obviously on the NFTs and the metaverse, and I probably add a bit of gaming because, a lot of what we've experienced recently, even with our own campaigns at Think Film with movies and content and even music, often we're using music to drive film content further. But, depending on your audience ages, as we're talking about, I've got a niece that spends her entire life on Roblox, like anything she sees there is her future decision, what she's buying, what she's wearing, what she's watching. So I think also to recognize what happened before, but realize what does that mean for audience engagement? Is there an ethical risk there to be constantly placing content there, driving? If you've got more money, are you going to put more marketing into certain content that they only watch certain pieces?